General Hospital spoilers reveal that a major shift is brewing in Port Charles, and it's not just a ripple in the drama, it's a full-blown explosion that could reshape the emotional and narrative core of General Hospital in the coming weeks. Recent developments confirm that two pivotal actors have officially re-signed their contracts with the show, and this single decision is already setting the stage for a cascade of dramatic consequences. Not only does this suggest a long-term commitment to deeper storylines involving their characters, but it also signals the return of suppressed secrets, unresolved vendettas, and emotional confrontations that have long simmered beneath the surface. The return of Chris McKenna as Jack Brennan under a new full contract status suggests that his story is far from over. His previous involvement in the morally gray world of intelligence and his connections to powerful factions in Port Charles are ripe for new exploration, especially as Sonny continues piecing together a sprawling conspiracy that may tie back to government experiments, rogue agents, and political cover-ups. Brennan, a man used to navigating the dangerous intersection of power and secrecy, may now be the linchpin between Port Charles and a larger unseen war brewing behind closed doors. This elevated role hints at his entrenchment in the lives of core characters, especially Anna, Jason, and possibly even Carly, each of whom has had past dealings with organizations that prefer control to justice. What Brennan knows, and what he chooses to do with it, may become the axis on which the city spins. His presence alone reintroduces an element of paranoia, obsession, and personal danger that will infect the Quartermaines, the Corinthos family, and anyone who believes secrets can remain buried. Meanwhile, the mysterious introduction of Pascal, played by newcomer Mark Forget, at the Five Poppies Resort is more than just a random character addition. His unsettling interactions with Britt Westbourne and Jason Morgan, combined with his air of controlled menace, suggest that his ties may run deeper than expected. While Britt's presence at the resort was already raising questions, Pascal's ability to disrupt not only her peace but Jason's operations reveals that he could be part of a larger operation. His interactions may connect to the growing rumors of Britt's potential involvement in a clandestine medical project, possibly linked to her father's legacy and bioethical experimentation that even Liesel has tried to suppress. If Pascal is a plant, whether for Victor's defunct network, Sidwell's collapsing empire, or a new foreign faction eager to expand influence, his storyline could spiral into one of obsession, surveillance, and manipulation. It's this uncertainty, Pascal's duality as both threat and savior, that mirrors the very tension Port Charles thrives on. No one is ever as they appear. On a more emotional front, the show's teen scene is heating up with raw vulnerability and psychological depth. Danny Morgan and Rocco Falconeri, long kept in the background, are stepping into their own. Their growing bond is not simply a footnote in the larger story, it's a foundation. Danny has begun acting as a quiet stabilizer, offering Rocco not just advice, but a lifeline in the wake of a devastating revelation. That the woman he believed to be his mother, Lulu, may not have been his biological caretaker at all. The truth, that Britt Westbourne once carried and raised him before handing him off to Lulu, shatters everything Rocco believed about family, identity, and love. As he grapples with this, Danny becomes his anchor. But this brotherhood may place them both in danger, especially as Sonny's investigations draw closer to those who once experimented on children and manipulated paternity results as part of a broader, darker goal. If these teens become collateral in a war between the past and the future, their roles in the story may grow exponentially. Rocco's identity crisis could mirror the one Jason faced years ago, when memory manipulation and familial deception tore his world apart. Now, history may be repeating, only worse. But all this emotional intensity is not contained within family walls. Carly's intuition is once again proving to be sharper than most law enforcement in Port Charles. Her gut feeling about Jocelyn's departure to Europe has her on high alert. And as Pascal's presence at the Five Poppies intersects with Britt's erratic behavior, Carly begins to suspect that something more sinister is brewing abroad. Her maternal instincts and her connection to Jason draw her deeper into the shadows of an unfolding international plot. Her ability to read between the lines may soon make her a target, especially if Britt is being held against her will or manipulated into silence. The revelation of hidden surveillance devices in the resort and encrypted communications between Pascal and an unknown handler may soon put Carly directly in harm's way. Especially if Sidwell's crumbling empire extends beyond domestic shores. Meanwhile, the signing of Chris McKenna and the rise of Pascal coincide with a subtle yet powerful realignment of loyalties in Port Charles. Selena Wu, once a carefully calculated ally, is beginning to play a more unpredictable game. Though currently following Sunny's orders to lure Sidwell into a false sense of security, Selena's true motives are slowly being revealed. She doesn't just want to help Sunny. She wants to rebuild the Wu legacy from the ground up, and to do that, she needs to eliminate anyone who stands in her way. Brad's return is part of this plan. Bringing him back into the fold not only reclaims family power but also threatens to reignite trauma, betrayal, and revenge that the town thought it had buried. Brad knows things about the baby swap, about Britt's past, and about underground pharmaceutical testing. If Selena intends to weaponize her own nephew, she could become the most dangerous player on the board, manipulating Sunny, deceiving Carly, and outmaneuvering Jason in ways even Victor couldn't. The reverberations of these casting decisions cannot be overstated. They represent not only a commitment to more ambitious storytelling, but also a resurgence of long-dormant arcs that promised devastation and never delivered, until now. As Jack Brennan's knowledge of covert programs collides with Selena's empire building and Pascal's introduction as either a pawn or kingmaker, every character in Port Charles will be forced to choose sides. The moral lines will blur, alliances will shift, and families will fracture. The choices made now, whether to protect a child's innocence or to preserve power, will echo for seasons to come. What makes all of this even more thrilling is the underlying thematic cohesion. Whether it's Britt's past as a surrogate mother, Danny's emerging moral compass, or Brennan's conflicted allegiance to justice, each storyline speaks to a central truth. In Port Charles, nothing stays buried forever. Secrets surface. Love is tested. And redemption, while possible, often comes at a price too steep for even the bravest to pay. This explosive convergence of contract renewals, new character introductions, and emotionally potent subplots marks not just another week of General Hospital, it signals a reset, a rebirth, a return to the edge-of-your-seat tension that made Port Charles a symbol of daytime prestige. With every scene, the shadow of betrayal grows longer. With every whisper of truth, the danger deepens. And as two actors settle into long-term roles, the town itself begins to tremble under the weight of what's to come. In General Hospital, history is not just remembered, it is relived, rewritten, and weaponized. And with these returns, the war for Port Charles has only just begun. The story surrounding Brennan is evolving into one of the most psychologically complex and emotionally charged arcs in Port Charles, revealing layer after layer of manipulation, vulnerability, and forbidden attraction. As Brennan's mysterious past merges with the chaos of his present, he begins to show signs of internal transformation, one of the most significant shifts in the current narrative. What started as a cold, calculated presence cloaked in charm and strategic thinking has now become something far more volatile. Brennan's connection with Carly, initially rooted in manipulation and covert agendas, is now dangerously personal. The more time he spends around Carly, the less he can suppress the emotional pull drawing him into her world, a world filled with buried grief, fractured loyalty, and unrelenting strength. Carly, with her unique combination of resilience and emotional intensity, becomes a mirror to Brennan's suppressed desires and vulnerabilities. She isn't just another target. She becomes the obsession, the unpredictable variable that threatens to destabilize every calculated move Brennan has made. Carly, in turn, finds herself increasingly drawn to Brennan, despite every warning sign screaming danger. His presence is intoxicating, his intellect unnervingly seductive, and his ability to anticipate her every move both thrilling and terrifying. What began as mutual suspicion slowly morphs into something dangerously intimate, a relationship laced with both temptation and risk. This emotional entanglement with Brennan creates a ripple effect across all of Carly's existing relationships. Jason, long seen as Carly's constant, begins to observe the change in her with an increasing sense of alarm. He recognizes the signs, the shifting loyalty, the subtle withdrawals, the way her defenses lower around Brennan in a way they never should. Jason's stoicism masks deep concern, but the emotional distance between him and Carly grows wider each day Brennan lingers in her orbit. Michael, Carly's son, watches with fury masked as worry, fearing Brennan is slowly replacing the trust once reserved for him, Sonny, or even Drew. For Michael, Brennan is not just a threat to his mother's heart, but a dangerous wild card embedded too deeply within their lives. And Sonny, ever the strategist, ever the protector, knows a threat when he sees one. He watches from the shadows, quietly calculating, aware that Brennan's charm is a facade hiding a much darker motive. Yet even Sonny knows that warning Carly now would be futile. The fire has already been lit. What makes this storyline so explosive is that Brennan is not merely a romantic complication. He is a destabilizer, a carefully placed storm within Port Charles. His intimacy with Carly is both his weapon and his weakness. The more entangled they become, the more power he gains, and the more exposed he becomes to emotional collapse. Carly is unknowingly walking a tightrope stretched between old loyalties and dangerous new desires, her every step watched by enemies and allies alike. Brennan's slow infiltration of her heart mirrors his growing influence in the city's power structure. He's whispering promises in her ear while setting traps for her oldest confidants. As Carly begins to confide in him, to lean on him emotionally and intellectually, she unknowingly feeds a narrative that could unravel decades of trust between her and Jason, her and Sonny, her and Michael. And the most devastating part? Brennan knows exactly what he's doing. The control Brennan holds over Carly is unlike anything she has experienced since her earliest years in Port Charles. With Jason, there was loyalty. With Sonny, there was history. With Drew, there was a desperate attempt at peace. But with Brennan, there is danger, lust, and manipulation rolled into a single, charismatic figure. Brennan speaks to the part of Carly that never stopped craving risk, the part of her that wants to feel seen, challenged, and undone. But that thrill may be the poison that unravels everything. Brennan doesn't just disrupt her relationships, he reframes them. He forces Carly to question who she truly trusts and whether her past decisions were ever her own. The tension is reaching a fever pitch, and Port Charles is watching. The shadows are growing long, and alliances are shifting. Jason is no longer the quiet guardian in the corner. Sonny is no longer the unshakable king. Even Michael, the once innocent son, is learning the art of war. And in the center of it all is Brennan, wrapped around Carly's emotions like a serpent, whispering truths she isn't ready to hear. Every moment Carly spends with Brennan pulls her deeper into a game she didn't ask to play. He isn't offering her love. He's offering her power, control, vengeance, and perhaps most dangerously of all, understanding. And Carly, who has spent her life being misunderstood or underestimated, is finally being seen. But being seen by someone like Brennan comes at a cost. Her alliance with him could ignite a chain reaction. Jason could walk away, Sonny could go to war, and Michael could lose his trust in his mother entirely. And Brennan wouldn't even flinch. Because he knows the real game isn't about Carly's heart. It's about what he can unlock through her. Access to secrets, alliances, and maybe even control over Port Charles itself. If Carly doesn't see this soon, she may wake up to find herself a pawn in a game where the rules are rewritten every night. And yet, there is something unsettlingly real about Brennan's emotions. He may be manipulative, but there is a storm behind his eyes that suggests this isn't just strategy anymore. He's slipping, too, losing the upper hand as Carly's fire begins to thaw parts of him long buried. What happens when the manipulator becomes the one manipulated? What happens when Brennan begins to fear losing Carly more than he fears being exposed? That moment could change everything. Because once Brennan falls, truly falls, all his plans unravel with him. And when that happens, Carly won't just be heartbroken, she'll be armed with the knowledge of who Brennan really is. And in Port Charles, that kind of knowledge is more dangerous than love. It's ammunition. As their story intensifies, one thing becomes clear: Brennan and Carly are not a love story. They are a ticking bomb. One wrong move, one emotional misstep, and the fallout could leave Port Charles in ruins. But neither can walk away. The attraction is too strong, the stakes too high. And in that danger lies the brilliance of this storyline, because sometimes, the most devastating love isn't the one that ends in heartbreak. It's the one that ends in war. Brit's return to Port Charles is not simply a twist in the ongoing narrative, it is the ignition point for a sprawling emotional detonation that no one saw coming. Her reappearance is like a crack forming in the foundation of everything the town believes to be stable. For some, it is a chance at redemption. For others, it is the harbinger of chaos. But most dangerously of all, it signals the arrival of a new kind of obsession. A dark, magnetic pull that doesn't just reshape relationships, but threatens to upend entire alliances. Brit is not alone, and the people returning with her aren't mere passengers in her story. They are carriers of secrets, holders of grudges, and amplifiers of the shadows she brings. Port Charles has survived many storms, but nothing quite like the psychological and emotional hurricane Brit is dragging behind her. She doesn't just come back to reclaim her place. She comes back transformed, emotionally volatile, and unwilling to forget what was done to her. Her obsession is no longer about love or loss, it's about control. What's most unnerving is the subtle, deliberate way Brit begins to insinuate herself into the lives of those who wronged her or left her behind. With each reunion, with each carefully chosen word, she unearths buried guilt and unresolved pain. Her return becomes a trigger. Especially for Jason, who is forced to confront the possibility that the woman he mourned is not only alive, but potentially altered beyond recognition. The lines between love and fear blur quickly as Brit begins to twist the emotional connections that once bound her to others into tools of control. And with her comes not just emotional wreckage but actual threats, people from the shadows who owe her their loyalty, who were forged in the same crucible of betrayal and survival. They're not here to reintegrate peacefully into Port Charles. They're here to help her reclaim what she believes is rightfully hers, and to punish those who left her behind. This entire transformation is fueled by the trauma Brit endured while presumed dead. Whatever happened in those lost months or years didn't just harden her, it turned her into someone capable of wielding trauma like a weapon. She doesn't scream for justice. She executes it with precision. And that terrifies people like Carly, who now finds herself caught between loyalty to Jason and fear of what Brit might do next. Carly sees Brit as a threat to the fragile order that's been preserved since her disappearance, and she's not wrong. Brit has no interest in fitting in. Her only desire is to expose the rot beneath the surface and remake Port Charles in her own fractured image. The obsession she once held for Jason has evolved into something much more dangerous. An unwillingness to share him, even with his own conscience. She doesn't want love. She wants complete emotional submission. The effect of Brit's return extends beyond Jason and Carly. Her reappearance shakes the Quartermaines, rattles the Corinthos empire, and plunges the hospital into psychological disarray. Elizabeth, who once tried to keep Brit in check, now finds herself on edge, wondering whether Brit knows what she did during her absence. Finn sees in Brit a reflection of the woman he once wanted to help, but now he realizes she may be too far gone. And Sunny, ever the strategist, understands that Brit's resurgence is not a coincidence. Someone has orchestrated her return, someone powerful, someone with an interest in watching Port Charles implode from within. Her presence is no longer personal. It's political. It's psychological warfare, one person at a time. And what of those who returned with Brit? These are not faceless allies. They are shadows of her past, people forged in secrecy and bound by blood or loyalty to causes long buried. They come armed with knowledge, connections, and a shared thirst for vengeance. Their silence is ominous, their movements calculated. Some blend in with ease, slipping unnoticed into hospital roles or legal positions. Others lurk in the background, studying the social power map of Port Charles and waiting for the moment to strike. Each of them has their own obsession, but they all orbit around Brit like satellites of destruction. Wherever she goes, she is not alone, and that should terrify everyone. The new control Brit seeks is not about reuniting with old lovers or making peace with her past. It's about rewriting the story. In her mind, Port Charles is a city that let her suffer and buried her without a fight. Now, she returns to hold up a mirror and show everyone their sins. Her version of control is psychological. She makes people question their memories, their loyalties, even their morality. She doesn't kill with weapons, she kills with revelations. And the biggest one may still be coming. Whispers suggest Britt may have discovered something about the Westbourne family legacy, something so damning it could burn down everything from the hospital boardroom to the mayor's office. Her arrival isn't just emotional fallout, it's a structural collapse in slow motion. This is the nature of the new disaster creeping into Port Charles. It isn't sudden. It isn't loud. It's a quiet unraveling. People who once stood strong begin to falter. Trust crumbles. Secrets spill. And at the center of it all stands Britt, broken but unbowed, fueled by the kind of obsession that doesn't ask for forgiveness, it demands reckoning. And reckoning is exactly what's coming. The town can try to contain her, to reason with her, to appeal to whatever humanity remains. But they'll find she no longer responds to reason. The trauma she carries has become her compass, and it points directly at the heart of the town. She's not back for redemption. She's back for transformation. And Port Charles will never be the same. This is no longer a story of a woman returning from the dead. This is the beginning of an emotional siege. And as those closest to Britt begin to fall under her psychological influence or fall victim to her quiet wrath, Port Charles will have to choose, protect its illusions, or survive her truth. Because Britt isn't just back. She's risen. And this time, she's the storm.